know, anytime you're going sort of 300 mile an hour near and the thing's on fire and explodes and someone passes you and they've got the head gaskets out and they're on fire and still motoring, you're just wondering what the damn's going on here.
Here we go. Oh, it's a red line. Reed wins it. No, she doesn't. By hitting the wall, she's handed the championship back to Gary Phillips. Great side-by-side drag racing. John Zampian finishes it as he started it. History in the making for him.
So Amanda, can she get herself into the field?
Pedal, explosion, enormous explosion. Welcome to the sights and sounds of Andra Pro Series drag racing. You're really going to enjoy this Street Machine magazine DVD. All the professional drag racers, all the power, all the fury. You're going to love it.
Top Fuel's the greatest race car in the world. It's the fastest accelerating car. There's nothing else on the planet like it.
Yeah, we've got 8 cylinders, there's 1,000 horses in each paddock.
It's very hard to explain what it's like because I don't think I've experienced anything in life that's quite like that, or that I can say it's very similar to that. It's a very unique experience.
First time I ever drove a Top Fuel car, I'd been in alcohol cars before, so I kind of took the mentality of, what could be that different? Same sensation, same everything else, but I was wrong.
They fire up and your head's banging against the padding and the roll cage, and you think, well, what have I got myself into maybe?
The burnout's very, very growly, very aggressive. It sounds like a steam locomotive barreling away behind you there.
You do the burnouts, I've done this before, this is easy, you know, and you're backing up with a bit of confidence and you're thinking, oh, this is great.
And then after the burnout and you back it back into the groove of the tyres and the traction slick, then we bump it into stage and then we start giving it fuel pressure and fuel volume, start dropping the engine revs, getting off the clutch.
The clutch is already out, it's a centrifugal clutch and you're squeezing the handbrake so tight to try and stop the car from moving forward, and you just got to bump it that little bit until the last beam.
You pull into pre-stage, you know, you put your visor down, you take your one last big deep breath.
When it's into stage and you hit that throttle, well, it's like an explosion. It's absolutely just like a real bomb going off.
When you hit the throttle, everything's happening so fast, it's so aggressive, it like just throws you back in the seat, and then some. It just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling.
Before 100 feet out, if you can tell me where you really are, you know, you're a liar, because it's just a blur. It kind of looks like you've just hit hyperspace and away you go.
I can honestly say it takes probably about a second to work out what's happened after you've hit the throttle.
You drive on instinct. People say, what do you think when it shakes? You don't. You react on instinct. If you're not driving on instinct, you shouldn't be driving. If you've got time to think in these cars, you're in the wall, you've rolled it over.
You've got to anticipate what you think the car's going to do while it's trying to fight you to do whatever it likes.
Everything's happening so fast, if you take your eyes off the racetrack to look down at the lever or something like that, you're off the track.
And at first it may take you a second to realise, is this thing blowing up or am I good and I'm on my way? But as soon as those G's start laying you back...
If anybody does the maths, they'll know that a driver's addicted to 8 G's right on the start line.
It's like wrestling a bear. Young Andrew Cowan say it's like stepping on a grenade. I've never stepped on a grenade, but it's badass.
You're not physically moving inside your suit or anything like that, but it actually feels like you're getting pushed back through the car.
You start to pull through that half track and you're doing, 250, 260 mile an hour.
By that stage, your stomach's really pushed right up into your rib cage. It's feeling like you can't breathe, and your chin strap's on full stretch and the belts are on full stretch.
The thing about a Top Fuel car is everyone's different.
I listen to that air being drawn into the injector hat the whole time, and that plays a song to me.
One time the car went this way, the next time the car goes right. We've never ever the same.
By about 3/4 track, the G-forces start wearing off. Your body starts catching up to what's going on, and what you've actually just put it through.
But, you know, to even to drive out the back door at that sort of speed, 500 plus k's an hour and into that parachute, well, damn, what an absolute thrill it is to sort of hit those parachutes and go from a positive G straight into a negative G.
And then before you know it, the ride's over, you got the chutes out, your eyes are now coming out the front of your head, and incredible.
I don't feel the launch that much anymore, but I know exactly when I've run over 320 miles, because those chutes hit hard and they want to push you out through the front of the race car.
It's nearly as much of a wrestle to stop the things as to make them go.
The eyes sort of come out the head and the veins and everything sort of come out the face, and it's a sensational sort of experience just stopping these cars and bringing them back down to sort of zero again.
I've been around most motorsports and built engines for most motorsports, and the reason we're hooked up with this one, 2.5 on the Richter scale on the hit of the pedal, it's got to be exciting.
I can't wait to get in that car tonight and step on that landmine and under my right foot and have it explode me off the start line.
If they didn't scare you a little bit, you wouldn't have respect and maybe shouldn't really be there.
That's the motorsport. It makes 8,000 horsepower. You're not changing spark plugs between meetings, you're changing engines. It's a cool deal.
First word comes to mind when I think about Top Fuel is acceleration.
Fast.
Explosion.
That's the ultimate.
Awesome. Just awesome, mate. God, really awesome.
Some fast facts now on Top Fuel. 500 cubic inch V8 engine producing more than 8,000 horsepower and using nitromethane fuel.
That minimum weight leads to a hell of a power to weight ratio. 44 amp magnetos providing spark at all times, and these things launch harder than the space shuttle. With high-reaching header flames and huge mile an hour, Andra Top Fuel lived up to its explosive and dangerous reputation. One man who had a shocking reminder of this was Darren Morgan during the Boxing Day event at Western Sydney.
Important run for Morgan, launches hard on the wheels, come off, a massive issue for him.
Over the course of the season, defending champ Phil Reed steadily lost sight of a record 4th consecutive title, as a new champion Phil Lamartina looks certain to be crowned coming into the penultimate round at the Karcher Nitro Champs.
That is tight. Dobson wins the championship, is alive for Phil Reed, Martin Stamatis and co. Margin of victory for the West Aussie. How about this? 47 thousandths of a second.
What a way to kick off eliminations. Harley-Davidson replay. The NZ reaction times are awesome, above their average. That's their A game right there. Dobson in front of half track, Dobson in front of the finish line. Phil Reed's short lifeline was short-lived. His championship hopes doused by Mark Mariani in the first round.
He's not going anywhere. He's lost the race. That is a big moment in the championship. He could not go to the high side going into full stage. Mariani, just to put an exclamation point on it, runs long and strong.
Oh, he's pumped. At the end of the event, it was West Aussie fireman Alan Dobson in the final against Darren Morgan, who was making his triumphant return to the scene of his horrific crash.
Pedal moment for Morgan. Dobson's still in front, but he loses the race. Dobson was in front at 1,000 feet, looking at the incrementals. Look at the emotion. Darren Morgan, well done. You've won the event. Wow.
Harley-Davidson replay, an 04 NZ light for Dobson. He wanted it, and it was a huge pedal for Morgan. He was off that throttle for a long time, and it still went 485.
042, the best reaction time we've seen in Top Fuel this weekend. And it was a surge, a stall, and then an ultimate surge for the Rocket Industries car.
Dobson will be sitting there thinking, man, I wish we raced to 1,000 foot in Australia. Ask any nitro-hardened crew chief with a real brains to a Top Fuel car lie. They'll tell you that you can't find it on the onboard computer. And they'll joke that you certainly won't find it in the driver. They'll tell you that the real brains to a Top Fuel car lie in drag racing's answer to the Rubik's Cube, the clutch. Housed in titanium behind the motor, the Top Fuel or centrifugal clutch is a form of direct drive transmission, not too dissimilar to that found in some motorbikes. What this means is that the clutch eliminates the need for a gearbox. Its sole responsibility, laying some 8,000 horsepower from the nitro-burning engine to this very sticky racetrack, a job that's easier said than done as the conditions out here are always changing. So the key is clutch slippage. Just like you're driving a road car, you lift that left foot off the clutch slowly, but fuel cars don't use a clutch pedal, so it's programmed to happen automatically. So how do you set up that clutch slippage? Well, first you've got to understand the componentry to a Top Fuel clutch. As we do this, it's important to remember that every Top Fuel team here this weekend has a dedicated mechanic, sometimes two, dedicated for the management and preparation of the clutch after every pass. Now today we're going to look at the AFT brand of clutch, one of the most used in nitro race cars anywhere in the world. We've got the housing, made of titanium. It has to be strong but light and withstand heat of up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. Inside that we find the flywheel. The flywheel contains these 9 adjustable stands, and inside the flywheel we build the clutch pack. The clutch pack, it contains 6 clutch discs, $150 a pop. Jim Reed Racing will bring 50 of these per car, so over 100 clutch discs here for the Jim Reed Racing team this weekend. Separating the 6 discs, we have 5 spaces, but the real brains of the clutch starts down here in the pressure plate or the hat. These adjustable levers inside the hat are the driving force to how much drive goes to the rear wheels. So a good pass down the racetrack is determined by what rate these levers engage the clutch discs. Slipping them too slow or too soft will make the car sluggish. This could see it drop cylinders. Too fast or over-aggressive and the car will zip up into tyre smoke. Getting a handle on a Top Fuel clutch can turn a crew chief into a great asset to a race team. Get it right and he could win you one of these, an Andra Gold Christmas tree. Guess wrong and your weekend could be over in the blink of an eye. In the end, Phil Lamattina only had to show up at the final event, the prestigious Winter Nationals, to claim his maiden Top Fuel title. It was a sweet return to a track that, as Dean Neal shows us, has been cruel to the Lamattina family.
The Phil Lamattina and the Fuchs Lubricants team, Willowbank Raceway has been a place of triumph and tragedy, pleasure and pain, but he comes into this event as the Andra Top Fuel champion.
Until they sort of hand me the trophy after the end of proceedings today, I don't think it'll really sink in until then. With this sport and this category, it's such orientated on a team aspect that as a driver, I just feel that I get the accolades for all the hard work that the team actually puts in. Obviously, we've had the big crash here, well publicised and everything like that, but you know, there's no real reservations coming here. We just love the place, we love racing, and anywhere's good. That was pretty much the lowest point of the whole season, I would say. We pretty much hit rock bottom as a team. You know, I culminated with the shoot incident. You know, I've beat myself up pretty hard about it, but we come back. We've done a lot of soul searching over the off season. We've come back with a different focus, a different attitude. And look, you know, we've got the championship to prove that, you know, with the right attitude and the right dedication, the hard work, the whole team can really pull it off. Winter Nationals, the last round of the series, the biggest race meeting of the year. It's the one to win if you really want to as a driver. You know, Andrew Championship drag racing is so tough these days. Next year's going to be even tougher. To actually win the championship, it's going to be a real mean feat. So if we can go back to back next year, that'd be just great. But yeah, we're definitely going to go full swing at it, and there's no holding back.
With the championship secure, a Winter Nationals Gold Christmas tree was still up for grabs. And while informed Lamattina cruised through to the final, the right to race him was hotly contested.
And it's Dobson, the fireman, is on fire. And he'll be rock-starring it up in the cockpit of that car. He takes it, and he will now eye second, and there he goes, he's fired up.
He's going to the final. 1,000 horsepower. It's almost hard to comprehend, but to give you some idea, it's the equivalent of more than 2 Holden HSVs. But believe it or not, that's the amount of horsepower found in just one of these 8 cylinders that make up an Aussie-built Sainty Top Fuel motor. And at any point, this horsepower can vanish when one of these 8 decides to die. This is known as dropping a cylinder. Also known as mixing up cylinders for when more than one goes offline, dropping a cylinder occurs when too much fuel enters the motor at a rate quicker than it can be burnt. Constant spark is provided at all times to the separate cylinders using twin spark plugs, but when the motor is overfueled, the cylinder drowns in nitro and the spark is doused. The telltale sign this is happening is raw fuel pumping out of the header pipe. The reason why the motor sometimes drowns is because it is swallowing nitro at a staggering 250 litres per minute. With this much fuel, the motor must always be under a heavy workload, sending energy to the rear wheels. If too much energy is sent, the car will smoke the tyres, reducing the workload again, and the car will drop a cylinder. If not enough energy is sent due to a soft clutch or not enough air being provided by the supercharger, then the motor won't get the workload it needs to burn the fuel and you will mix up cylinders. The instant loss of 1,000 horsepower is not felt lightly by the motor, the car or the driver. Say this cylinder right here, the number 5 cylinder, is over-fueled and dies. That's the sudden loss of one of these conrods and 1,000 horsepower. Suddenly, this side of the motor has 3,000 horsepower compared to the original 4,000 horsepower. And with one less of these monster conrods thrashing and punching inside, the car will move in the direction of the drop cylinder. So the drivers must be skilled enough to steer the car when it steps sideways at over 400 kilometres an hour. The other spectacular side effect is the huge detonations caused by the other 7 cylinders failing to cope with the extra burden. Keeping all 8 of these 1,000 horsepower cylinders firing at all times during the race is vital to going fast and not hurting parts.
Pre-stage lights are on. We're going to get the header flames. The sun is setting. Are you ready? Here it comes. Big explosion once again for Dobson. What a way to celebrate a championship. The Fuchs Lubricants team has flown to icing the championship in style. Fireworks here at Willowbank Raceway and fireworks for the Lamartina team.
The Fuchs car has won it in its final ever race. It was about to be put out to pasture, a new car from the United States for them next season. And Alan Dobson's run at the Castrol Edge Winter Nets comes to a very, very fiery end. It was a good final. Let's have a look what's happened to Alan Dobson on the Harley-Davidson replay as he's about to torch the 6th motor in 6 passes. Oh, it was a big one too.
Looks like some clutch damage too coming out of that. Big end of flames for the Fuchs Lubricants car. Just feel that clutch grab. And again, they always carry plenty of speed at the finish line.
White Mate's getting the shoots out. That's the first exit on the left-hand side. He's screaming towards the sand trap. He's just going to get this thing pulled up. Just right there.
How about 320 miles an hour? Talking to Theo and the team, they're still wanting to finesse the application of the clutch down the track to just improve that elapsed time a little bit more. And of course, word through the paddock next season, Graham Cowan returns with the Rocket team. And Andrew Cowan, an NHRA superstar.
Already.
I can't wait for that.
Next season is going to be absolutely huge.
Watching the carnage with Alan Dobson, of course, dropping cylinders. The other thing is hydraulicking a cylinder. Too much fuel in a cylinder, not clearing out, destroys the motor. Just enjoy the ride from this head-on angle. Huge explosion for the uplift car. But a big win for Phil Lamartina. Pleasure after pain 12 months ago.
What a season of Andra Top Fuel after 8 rounds. The Shannon's Insurance point score shows Phil Lamartina clearly on top and Alan Dobson in second in a season that saw us have 13 different races and 4 different winners.
It sounds simple. Take a car and accelerate from a standing start over a quarter mile as quick as possible. But imagine that your vision is impaired by an enormous engine forcing its way out through the bonnet. And that engine is making 3,500 horsepower. Beside you, an equally ferocious machine, spinning and growling as it awaits your company on the start line. You barely touch the gas pedal, and the engine revs wildly, awaiting the flash of amber, then green to set you off. With a stab of the throttle and a dump of the clutch, your helmet is pinned to the roll cage as the car launches, reaching the national speed limit in under 1 second, and you have only just passed the start lines. Already, the huge engine is roaring, begging for another gear, then another, and as you blur through tyre shake, fighting the car to stay straight with one hand, whilst the front wheels barely touch the road. You have travelled 2 lengths of a football pitch in 3.8 seconds, but you're still only halfway. As the finish line approaches, the V8 screams toward 10,000 RPM, and you drive with one hand again as you reach for the parachute to arrest the car from over 400 kilometres an hour. Welcome to Top Door Slammer.
Let's check out some fast facts for Andra Top Door Slammer. Of course, those distinctive body styles, a unique characteristic, Chad, of the fastest accelerating sedans on planet Earth.
Of course, supercharged methanol burning engine. Now, what that essentially means, Dean, we've got the big blower on top. We'll be talking about that a bit later. But the key thing with Andra Top Door Slammer is they're the wildest category going around.
Obviously, there's weight sanctions on the category as well, and must have usable doors, which we love to see after the burnout sequence. Always a crowd favourite, this drag racing eliminator. While 29 Andra Top Door Slammers competed around the country, all the attention was on the man looking for back-to-back titles, John Zappia. While Robin Judd and Ben Bray did their best to stop the rampaging striker Monaro, Zappia was undefeated all the way to the tin top titles at Willowbank. You've got to ask the question, will this be the first side-by-side, all 5-second pass in Door Slammer history? The conditions are sensational. They're both in a pre-stage. You see the top lights on the Christmas tree illuminated, taking their time to move into full stage. Still waiting. The NZ whole shot was with Judd, but Zappia wins it by 28 thousandths of a second. That is breathtaking Door Slammer racing.
National record for elapsed time, John Zappia, 5:85. What a Harley-Davidson replay. Robin Judd nearly rolled the staging beams. He took a run up at that pass. I don't know whether the clutch was pulling him through or whether that was intentional, but it's the first side-by-side 5, and how long have we been waiting to see that? We've got 9 cars in the country that have achieved it, but never have we seen it in the same race. One of the most defining images of Andra Top Door Slammer, the supercharger or blower sticking aggressively through the bonnet. Not to be mistaken with the injector hat here, the supercharger is a large air compressor that compresses air and forces it down into the engine. Driven by the crank via the blower belt made of Kevlar, its primary role is to create a higher flow rate of air and fuel, turning it into horsepower. The more air you can cram in, the more fuel you'll burn, ultimately resulting in a bigger bang. Now, there are 2 types of supercharger we use in Andra Door Slammer. The root style blower, using a series of lobes, offers external compression. This is where air is sucked through the blower and compressed inside the manifold, inside the engine. This is indeed a highly inefficient process, which sees boost reduced further down the track. It does work good on low RPM, whereas the screw style supercharger, as seen here without the injector hat on, offers internal compression. As these 2 screws spin, it sucks in air, internally compressing it inside the blower housing, pushing it down into the motor. This is indeed a highly efficient process. It sees less backflow, it sees less leakage, and ultimately produces greater boost for the entire pass. One of the most common misconceptions, thanks mainly to the film Mad Max of course, is that they can be switched on. But this is indeed not the case. They must always be spinning and forcing air into the engine for it to be working. So if you break the blower belt, the supercharger will stop, so will the engine. Superchargers are no new invention. Over the last 150 years, they've powered everything from air raid sirens to air conditioners on trains. But they are still the most effective way of producing maximum horsepower the moment you put your foot down.
In national record-setting form, John Zappia looks set to continue on his winning ways at the Karcher Nitro Champs. It was a thought that left the competition shaking. While Zap's Rat powered on to another final, Ben Bray and Robin Judd faced off in the other semi-final. And more vicious tyre shake for the West Aussie. Ben Bray moves on through and had some issues. The 618. Oh, problems for Judd.
Into the wall hard.
Looks like he lost control of the car.
He locked those rear wheels up then, I'm positive.
There is so much going on when they cross the finish line in these Door Slammers. A lot of housekeeping. You've got to guess where the finish line is. You've got to pull the chute lever as you cross.
3 or 4 pedals for Judd. He was never going to catch Bray, but he gave it his best. Now what's happened here? He's got on that handbrake too hard, locked the rear wheels, and that's a bit of a hit.
The other thing they can do too, they depress the clutch pedal past the finish line, and sometimes they can lose a bit of grip. It'll be interesting to find out. Oh, look at that for Judd. Vicious tyre shake, pedal for Bray as well.
It shouldn't have done too much damage.
Looks like he had some issues too, a bit of a whiff of smoke coming out of the Bray machine, but a big cloud on the wall for the William Buck Chartered Accountants entry. The final, are you ready? Hang on and hold on, deep stage for Benny. Brilliant reaction time for the Castrol car, but here comes Zap, and he does it!
A new national record once again. 5.82. And it looked like a fuel injector line or something coming away from the supercharger hat. Fuel line, definitely a fuel line, but come on, 5.82. A national record in every single pass of eliminations. Unbelievable, clever tactics from Ben Bray to deep stage. Do anything you can to put the other guy off in the other lane. Start that bit closer to the finish line. He tried everything in the book, but when someone runs 5.82, what on earth can you do?
Head-on shot. John Zappia, aggressive. There. Look at that, miles short of the 1,000-foot line. Just past half track, the fuel line goes away. Probably create a bit of a lean condition in the engine. But looking at his 8th mile incrementals, 384, he was on a run from the get-go.
You gotta say, this thing is potentially gonna run 5.7s. Nuts!
Absolutely nuts. Look at the fume, all the clutch dust.
Very minimal tyre shake for Benny Bray, but he did drive an excellent final. That deep stage was a great idea.
And hey, he ran a 6.04. That is a stout run for Ben Bray.
In recent seasons, we've seen dramatic ET and speed improvements in Andra Top Door Slammer, and a big reason for that has been the introduction of the lock-up clutch device.
So why do Top Door Slammer racers use the lock-up clutch device? Because the car needs some clutch slippage to get through trouble spots in first gear. But by having ample clutch slippage at the start, in the past you would still have some slippage over the top half of the run, which costs elapsed time and speed. A lock-up clutch forces one-to-one drive in the car, and therefore no slippage, which delivers those improvements.
In Andra Top Door Slammer, the lock-up clutch device is relayed either through a button or a lever and actuated through an air servo similar to the one that's located in the Lenco drive.
It's when you look at the clutch of a Top Door Slammer car, and the pressure plate in particular, with the 6 levers used within, that the anatomy of the lock-up procedure is made clearer.
Looking at the pressure plate, you see 6 fingers. And in the Holden Genuine Parts configuration, on the dump of the clutch, 3 of these fingers are actuated to provide some slippage over the first half of the run down the quarter mile. Then upon the actuation of the lock-up clutch device, the white designated levers are then released courtesy of a bearing, and then you get one-to-one drive and you can chase that horsepower and speed.
Then there is the question of what combination of levers a Door Slammer racer will use at the pressure plate. It largely comes down to data and personal taste. Most teams with the lock-up clutch will use a 3 primary and 3 lock-up lever mix to the pressure plate. Some teams will use variations on this depending on how much slippage or how quickly they want to lock up the clutch into the run down the quarter mile. Intent on becoming the first ever racer to clean sweep a season of Andra Top Door Slammer, John Zappia was fired up for the season-ending Winter Nationals. And after putting away Ben Bray in the semis, emotions were simmering close to boiling point.
Yeah, no, definitely do. Yeah, but have I ever done it? Yes. Okay. Oh, just remember you started. Okay.
There's plenty of fuel in the tank.
Lining himself up for another shot at Zappia in the final, Robin Judd was the only man standing in between Zappia and history.
But this is finals time. Can Zappia continue this unbeaten streak through this season? First man ever to do it if he can win this race.
Of course, the Castrol Edge kid, Ben Bray, who Zappia dispatched with in the semi-finals with a lot of drama and emotion, has had a longer winning streak, 24. But it went from Tin Top Titles event to the corresponding event 12 months later. So this is a calendar season or a championship drag racing season. John Zappia looking at history.
Track conditions and the air right now just fabulous for drag racing. The track temps come down a few degrees. They would have that traction test out there testing that earlier. And this would be just in the ballpark where Robin Judd likes it, I think.
Some wheel speed off the start line is essential for the William Buck Chartered Accountant Studebaker. How about the reaction times? John Zappia, often a bunny in the headlights with his drag racing rivals when it comes to the tree, but he has been razor sharp today.
He's brought his A game this weekend. You might wonder, why are these two just meeting each other all the time in finals? Well, it's just a matter of how many laps they do in testing back at the Perth Motorplex. These guys do more racing than anybody else, and it shows. All that data is very important.
Talking to several of the Sydney-based door slammer racers, that's something they're all talking about. I think we need to pursue more testing opportunities at Western Sydney. I'm sure the Queensland racers feel the same way, because the data, the mountain of data that these two have had, it is no fluke they have dominated the championship this season.
Will we see start line games? It's been topic of the day.
Both have been involved with them this season. It is undoubtedly a future dynamic in top door slammer. Waiting on Zapier. Huge reaction time advantage to John Zapier. Don't know what was happening with Robert Judd, but a great side-by-side drag race, and John Zapier finishes it as he started it. History in the making for him.
Side-by-side fives, and it is history in the making in many ways. John Zapier on the Harley-Davidson replay, the first man to whitewash a season of Andra Top Door Slammer. Unbelievable season, 18 straight round wins. Look at the team, the William Buck team, thinking, what on earth was Judd doing sitting on the line?
077 light. Well done to John Zapier. He was focused, he was determined, and that's been the tale of his season.
The Shannon's Insurance points score at season close, and Zapier 223 points clear of Robin Judd, who goes runner-up once again. Bray heads the rest in a season that saw us have 29 door slammer entries. Dragsters and funny cars are two of the most iconic images in the sport of drag racing. Bearing little to no resemblance to road cars, they are built with the sole intention of eating up the quarter mile at massive speeds. Top Alcohol is unique in the sense that it's the only Andra Pro Series bracket to pit two classes of car against each other. Getting its name from the methanol that pumps through its veins, Top Alcohol dragsters and Top Alcohol funny cars don't share a lot in common. So how do two cars so different in weight, power, and most certainly appearance put on a fair race? Well, the answer can be found in the question itself, as both classes are afforded different concessions in the field of weight and horsepower to even up the competition. In terms of weight, Top Alcohol dragsters are the lighter of the two. Weighing roughly 25% less than the funny cars, they have the advantage of faster acceleration. The longer wheelbase also makes the dragsters more stable than the unpredictable funny cars. Top Alcohol funny cars gain their advantage in the field of horsepower. They are afforded extra supercharger overdrive, which means more air is crammed into their already bigger engines. Combine the extra cubic inches and blower boost adds up to an estimated extra 500 horsepower, which means higher speed at the finish line. If both cars are tuned correctly, the dragster should be quicker at the beginning of the race and the funny car faster at the end, resulting in close racing. Proof of parity is in the numbers. Last season, out of the 39 heads-up races held in Andra Top Alcohol, the funny cars took the win light 56% of the time. And considering they filled 56% of the 16 entries around Australia, that's proof of incredibly even racing. In the end, they split the 6 Andra Gold Christmas trees 3 apiece, with Gary Phillips' funny car winning the title just one measly race win ahead of Debbie Reed's dragster. Here at Willowbank this weekend, we have 6 of the more stable, lighter Top Alcohol dragsters. They'll be trying to score first blood in the Andra Pro Series. Aiming to stop them will be 5 of these very aggressive, powerful, yet unpredictable funny cars. But as soon as that light goes green on race day, it doesn't matter which race car you're driving, it's each man or woman for themselves.
Some fast facts now on Andra Top Alcohol racing machines. They're methanol-burning supercharged V8s. Funny car versus altered versus dragster.
We'll see them running mid 5-second passes at up to 250 miles per hour.
Maximum 10,500 RPM at the finish line and 3,500 or more horsepower.
Andra Top Alcohol was by far the most dramatic of the Pro Series categories, with a countrywide battle royale waging between the dragsters and funny cars. Husband and wife team Debbie and Steve Reed claimed early round wins until disaster struck during the NZ New Year Series.
Oh, searing run for Gary Phillips. Trouble for Steve Reed, though. Explosion, drama. Clouts the wall hard. The body goes flying.
The win was the first for Gary Phillips in the Lucas Oil Products funny car, and when he cruised through to the final of the penultimate round of the championship, he had positioned himself as a huge title threat to the Reeds, who had bravely returned with a new car.
Identical NZ reaction times, and Stephen Reid, his championship hopes are enhanced with that run. 5.74, Debbie Reid looked like some nasty tyre shake. Big rattle of those big rear tyres on the dragster. We're about to find out if that is true.
Yeah, clutch settings not quite right for Deb. A little bit of shake, that was all it took. She didn't even bother getting back on it. She knew that the hubby was going to power through to a final. Up come the revs, here we go.
Love this moment. High RPM, top alcohol drag racing. Listen to it. Brilliant NZ reaction time. Gary Phillips. It's going to go down to the Winter Nationals.
Wow. And he just upped the mile an hour just that little bit more in case no one saw that the points were already his. Interesting to see what's happened to Steve Reid. The way that he's pulled off to the right-hand side of the track would say that he thinks something's gone wrong in the car. He hasn't just got off it.
Harley-Davidson replay. It looks like a short shift, yes. A hint of rattle there.
Oh, wow, the blower. Really, really crooked for Stephen Reid. That was game over. Maybe the clutch just came on too heavy and spiked it. There's that shake you were talking about.
But he punched through it. That is what it takes to be a champion. To have the instinct. Knowing that it's not just about winning this drag race, it's about winning the championship. One of the distinctive parts of drag racing has to be the enormous tyres these cars run, like Wayne Newby's 34.5-inch tyres on his JBS Tools dragster. There is a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to tyre selection, and because drag racing is more brutal on tyres than any other form of motorsport, it's an area that can present several options and variables in selection and tune-up. The first thing the team must do is inflate both rear tyres and then check the rollout or the circumference of them. They need to be within an inch of each other to make sure the car runs straight and fast. Usually with most tyre manufacturers there are two types of rubber used, a harder or softer compound. There's no monkey business when it comes to safety with drag racing rear tyres. Obviously a lot of downforce applied to these tyres, and for many years, conventionally, and a lot of teams still use them, a tube and liner setup inside the rear wheels. Basically, the tube goes to this point, about 2 inches off the rim, then a liner around that. And they'll inflate that section of the tyre up to 50 psi. Then they inflate the tyre on the outside of that, and depending on conditions, they'll adjust that accordingly. A tube and liner combination was originally used as a safety mechanism in the event of a tyre blowout. However, many teams still like to use an internal barrier around the inner tube of the tyre to help keep its shape. A more recent development in drag racing on the rear tyres has been the implementation of a beadlock system, basically a big plate that affixes the tyre to the rim of the car. What it means is you don't have to run a tube or a liner, and it saves the driver as much as 15 kilograms weight, but whether to run one or not comes down to a driver's personal taste. A non-beadlock tyre enables the tyre to stand taller during a pass down the quarter mile. A beadlock tyre is stiffer at the rim and forces the tyre to squat down more. Alternatively, a non-beadlock tyre can spin off the rim a little bit, where a beadlock tyre has no give at all. As for who runs what sort of tyre combination, it's a pretty even mix throughout the top alcohol field. Even when it comes to simple matters like inflating the tyres, the team will adjust that depending on the conditions of the track. The tighter or stickier the racetrack, the more air they'll put in these huge rear tyres.
So the scene was set for a thrilling Winter Nationals finale, with only a handful of points covering the Reids and Phillips. And as fate would have it, the two funny cars lined each other up in the first round of eliminations.
Whose championship is over at this point in time? We're going to know in around 5 to 6 seconds' time.
Long time.
Trouble for Steve Reid. Backfires through the engine. Gary Phillips' championship is still alive. It's between Debbie Reid and Gary Phillips. 586 look like massive clutch issues for Steve Reid in the Total Tools car.
The clutch just came on really, really heavy as soon as he touched the throttle. Championship over for Steve Reid. Debbie Reid's happy. We're looking at the Lucas Oil Products funny car.
Hint of shake on the early part of the run for the Lucas Oil Products funny car.
And it threw a belt again. That was a get out of jail card. And would you believe it, he's going to match up with Debbie Reid in the semi-finals. The action is well and truly alive at the Winter Nats. With one Reid out of the way, Phillips had one hand on the trophy. And in a script that only sport can write, he was to meet Debbie Reid in the semis.
Well, Chad, you Nostradamus. Like Gary Phillips standing, that's not a
good reaction time. Debbie Reed wins it a whole shot. And the championship is still alive.
Amazing, it's going to the final round. Debbie Reed on a whole shot win. It was a 5:60, still quick.
But she won with the slower elapsed time by virtue of gaining a head start off the start line.
Clicks in a second, clicks in a third, holds onto the win. She's going to the final.
5:57 for Gary Phillips and lost the race. Championship is alive.
So with the hubby and Phillips out of the way, Debbie Reed had just one more hurdle to overcome in wildcard Aaron Hambridge. And so after more twists than NCIS, the championship was to be decided on the final race of the season.
Here we go. Oh, it's a red line. Reed wins it. No, she doesn't. By hitting the wall, she's handed the championship back to Gary Phillips. The first or worst rule applies in Andra Championship drag racing for less than a second. Look at the Harley-Davidson replay. Reed wins the championship until now.
Over-aggressive, Debbie hoiks the front wheels up. When they land, it unloads the rear tyres and throws it into the wall. She was the national champion for all of 1.5 seconds. That's heartbreaking.
Well, Chad, there you go. Gary Phillips ices the championship in a breathtaking final ahead of Debbie Reed by just 15 points ahead of Stephen Reed.
The Reed Transport team will be thinking, how did this one get away? Congratulations to Phillips on another top alcohol title.
Andra Top Bike is the home of the ultimate racing motorcycle. Burning nitro and covering the quarter mile in 6 seconds at over 350 kilometres an hour, these violent V-twins and four-cylinder motorcycles have a contempt for riders that is hard to tame. No roll cage, no belts, no fear. Some fast facts now on the Andra Top Bike drag racing category. They are the ultimate racing motorcycles, nitro-burning turbo and supercharged engines allowed.
We'll be looking to see these bikes run into the mid-6 seconds passes at 230 plus mile an hour.
Fully fabricated, purpose-built machines producing more than 1,000 horsepower. The 2008-2009 Andra Top Bike season was one of the greatest V-twin versus four-cylinder battles in the history of the sport. After Kim Stevens scored early in the season for the Harleys, Jay Upton and Athel Williams dominated the series right up to the Karcher Nitro Champs. With a flying Kiwi holding the points lead coming into the penultimate round, nobody knew just how much drama was in store. Jay Upton was in trouble before the 1,000-foot mark, yet amazingly he still ran a 6:35 at 310 kilometres per hour, after reaching quicker than that to the 8th mile. Upton slamming into the wall after bailing from the machine and was lucky not to be collected by Craig Bonwick. Incredibly, despite a fractured pelvis and heavy shoulder abrasions, Upton was upright minutes later trying to assess the cause.
But it was one of those crashes that one moment we're going along okay and the next moment we've crashed. You get used to how things feel, and you can tell when it's not doing well and make it, you know, sometimes you think to yourself, will I get out, will I not, you know, is it that good that I want to stay in it, or all those things go through your mind while you're using up a lot of racetrack. But it didn't do that. It, you know, after I pedalled when it smoked the tyre, I thought, well, you know, I need to know where the tune-up is, so I'll go as far as it wants to go. And we had only gone to three-quarter distance and it was already going 360 kilometres an hour. It's a new chassis which is much better than the old one. New chassis and body, $50,000 2 races ago. It's, you know, it wouldn't be so bad if you crashed the old one.
After witnessing the drama from the staging lanes, newly crowned champion Athel Williams shocked the Western Sydney crowd further by running under the national record with a jaw-dropping 6:16 second pass at 383 kilometres an hour. Trying to repeat the performance the following day, Williams very nearly overstepped the mark.
Got to go quicker than 6.22.
Big, strong head of flame, and he's done that! Oh, he's getting near the side retaining wall. That is frightening for our Andra Top Bike points leader, and he's got to pull the machine up before the pea gravel and just falls short of that. Whoa!
Once again, the bike just meeting every increment perfectly.
109 to the 60 foot. That is very aggressive for the stud welding team. They would be happy with that. And look at the parachute on screen here. Going near the wall, tags the wall. Watch the foot peg on the right-hand side, left of screen. So close to the wall. And the focus. And the other thing too, these bikes have a square edge tyre, and he's actually leaning the bike towards the wall to get the bike away from the wall. How do you figure that out in your brain? Amazing.
You've got to fight your instincts.
Athol powered on through to the final, but had some dramatic news of his own to announce before the race.
Stud World New Zealand is paying basically all the bills, and we just can't afford to with the economic climate back home in NZ to race next season.
National record for elapsed time and speed are in the books at the moment for the Flying Kiwi. He wants the gold tree now. Exciting over the first part of the run. The Flying Kiwi gets the win, 6:59. Certainly swerving around the track a little bit over the first eighth, but he gets the Karcher Nitro Champs Gold Trophy.
So well done to Athol. The bike did put a cylinder out in the second half of the racetrack. You'll see it right off screen. Chris Porter did absolutely everything. You can see how much he's wrestling that motorcycle. He wanted it. He wanted it really badly. A short puff at 1,000 foot. A really big puff at the finish line, but a gold Christmas tree to Athol.
The Winter Nationals was to draw the curtain on both a thrilling season of Andra top bike and Athol Williams time racing in Australia. And when he lined up in the final once again next to Chris Porter, he was set to go out in style.
He's iced the championship. He wants the Winter Nationals once again. Huge reaction time advantage for Porter. The engine lays over and Williams wins it. Great run for Chris Porter though.
Porter did everything he possibly could, but when you're up against a man like Athol Williams, look at the camera flashes on the Harley-Davidson replay. Everyone here at Willowbank wants to get one last snap of the Flying Kiwi. Just pulls him back a half track. Strong head of flame. Great win, Athol Williams.
This is the last Andra round for us. We're going to do the Trans-Tasman Challenge, then going back home to New Zealand to park the bike, unfortunately.
It's very unfortunate, Athol, but you finished the season 300 points clear in the Shannon's Insurance point score of Jay Upton. The Parker boys stuck around in a season that saw us have 3 different winners, 5 different finalists.
Smooth, sleek lines. A naturally aspirated small block V8 engine that only sings sweet songs. And an attention to detail that leaves others in its way. At first glance, these machines look harmless enough. However, the calmness and precision on the outside contradicts the racer-induced frenzy within. Your engine alone has had more than 1,000 hours of preparation. The noise it makes as you stab the throttle on fire up proves those efforts were worthwhile. A sweet, crisp sound. This car is difficult to drive, and in a class where victory is measured in millimetres, your focus is critical. You carefully inch your car to the starting line, guided into precisely the right launch zone. Reacting to the first hint of a yellow light from the start line is vital, as most races are won and lost right here, right now. As you launch, each gear shift must be perfect. You slam into 5th gear and you hear the engine screaming at well over 10,000 RPM. Just 4 seconds into the race. By the time you deploy the twin parachutes, which slows the car down from over 300 frenzied kilometres an hour, you have covered the journey in around 7 seconds flat. This is Andra Pro Stock. Some fast facts now for Andra Pro Stock. Of course, the body types must be of 1986 or later.
Once again, naturally aspirated engines, only this time we're playing with V8s, small block V8s, so no more than 400 cubic inches.
5-speed manual transmission, some busy drivers behind the wheel.
Minimum weight of 1,043 kilograms, which is not much when you include the driver.
A full production type suspension used in these cars.
And once again, homologated high-octane gasoline, just as we saw in Pro Bike.
Andra Pro Stock has been dominated in recent times by the Aquiline Pools team of brothers Aaron and Tyrone Tremaine. But a new season meant a batch of big names with more horsepower and new looks. Unfortunately for Lee Bektash, his new looks only lasted 2 races as the Tremaines took first blood. When round 4 of the series rolled into Willowbank Raceway for the Tin Top titles, the big question was who, if anybody, could stop the Tremaines. And it was Brisbane Isuzu's Dave Newcomb who stepped up to the plate. This is going to be tight. What a drag race. I told you the reaction tyres are important. Dave Newcomb was brilliant off the start line and a whole shot win.
I love whole shot wins. There's nothing like it at Andra Pro stock. Harley Davidson replay. Newcomb runs the slower elapsed time but smashes him at the tree, and the #1 points getter is out in the first round.
With one Tremaine on the trailer, Newcomb set his sights firmly on the defending Andra Pro Stock champ in the final. Brilliant head-set reaction time, both sides of the racetrack. And what a final! And Aaron Tremaine wins it on a whole shot.
He did it on a whole shot. I can't believe he got beat on the tree. Harley Davidson replay. How did Tremaine pull? Where did he pull that from? And that is what 10,000ths of a second looks like at 300 kilometres an hour.
Great replays thanks to Harley Davidson, and what a cracking drag race. So many whole shots. This has been one of the best Pro Stock meetings I have ever seen.
Concentration on Aaron Tremaine's face. He's having a glance. He wants to see, where is he? Where is he? Have I got him? You've got him, Aaron. You've got the win light.
People are amazed about Andra Pro Stock, the fact they get down the quarter mile in roughly 7 seconds. But when you break it down, these things have got 5-speed gearboxes and they get it done and run in less than 4 seconds. Now, how is that possible? It comes down to this baby right here. This is called the Liberty Manual Clutchless Transmission System. So how is it they're able to crank through 5 gears in 4 seconds? Well, let's break it down. The first thing you'll notice here with this Liberty handle, it's a pistol grip. That buys the driver some time through the shifts. Any small advantage in reaction and moving through these gear shift points is important. Also, remembering the fact they've got to nail the shift points within a few hundred RPM down the quarter mile. First thing you'll notice here, you move the V-gate device down here by using this lever here. You move it up into first gear. First thing they do is to press the button on the top of the Liberty shifter. That is the burnout line lock mechanism. So what happens is it limits the RPM of the engine during the burnout. Usually around 7,000 RPM. They normally do that in third gear, kick it into fourth and then into fifth gear. They back the car up. They lock it into first gear. And this is where Pro Stock really shines as a brutal drag racing class. They move from first gear into second gear in 0.8 of a second into the run. They click through to third gear 1.4 seconds into the run. Then they hustle through to fourth gear 2.3 seconds into the run, and then finally move into top gear just 4 seconds into the run. The other amazing thing is, of course, the Pro Stock car isn't physically halfway down the track until about 4.5 seconds. So those 5 shift points are done and run well before half track. So you want to know how these guys can shift so quickly? It's this Liberty transmission system that provides a key advantage to these races down the quarter mile. With the Tremaines taking a firm stranglehold on the series coming into the Karcher Nitro Champs, teams had to put it all on the line to keep the championship alive. One man who took it upon himself to turn the tables was John Barbagallo, and he did so in stunning fashion. 1:004 60-foot time for John Barbagallo. What? 7:04? Is that right?
It is right. It's way under the national record, a 7:04. Where did that come from?
I had to wipe my eyes when I saw the 1:0060. I'm thinking, what's going on? His teammate ran them. Unbelievable. Dave Newcomb, and he's just done that.
Well, the 7:10 was the quickest he'd ever been. It was testing at the Tin Tops. I can't believe that scoreboard. 7:04 under Tyrone Tremaine's national record as he eliminates him in the first round, and that has huge repercussions for the championship.
He repeated the dose against Aaron Tremaine in the semis, going quicker again, and set off to the final to grab the rest of the points. .1:003 to the 60-footer and a 7:06 again. Unbelievable form for John Barbagallo, and the margin of victory 6/100ths of a second.
What do you do? It's almost unbeatable. Hedges would have had to have run really, really fast if he was going to get that. Harley Davidson replay did everything he could. NZ reaction time was great. Carries the front wheels to 60 foot. He was in front at 3:30, and then slowly but surely that white beastie Ford pulled away from him. The first time we've seen Ford and Chev take each other on in a final in a very long time, and it was Ford who came out on top.
Interesting to hear the engine. They're still trying to work out their fuel-to-air mixture. Exhaust sensors, and it just sounded a little bit labouring.
Sounded like a short shift into fifth as well.
Come the season grand final at the Winter Nationals, and the Tremaines had a solid points lead over the newly revered Barbagallo. But in a race day full of upsets, Aaron Tremaine red-lit against young gun Shane Tucker, opening up the door for JB. This left Tyrone Tremaine as the final threat to the title, but Lee Bektash in his new Dodge stood in between the sibling rivalry and ended the dreams of another championship hopeful. This meant that despite being knocked out early, Aaron Tremaine would miraculously hold on for back-to-back crowns. With the championship wrapped up, the focus shifted to the Giant Slayer final between Tucker and Bektash, who amazingly were the number 7 and 8 qualifiers coming into race day. Oh, huge reaction time advantage. It's tight. Try 45 thousandths of a second tight. Tucker wins at 7.134, 1.36 for Bektash. Pro Stock, that is the best Pro Stock event I've seen in Australia. Bar none.
Harley Davidson replay, Bektash out of the groove. That's what's cost him the race. It only took 45 thousandths of a second. It's all he needed to lose. He was still making good horsepower at the finish line, 192 mile an hour. Tucker gets the win.
Looking at the 8th there, Bektash looks toe-to-toe, but Tucker does just enough. That little deviation off the groove was enough for Tucker to win this one, a big one.
On board with Bektash, the shift light going crazy. Tucker will edge ahead at half track. A short shift into top gear for Bektash. The shift light didn't come on. At the end of a long season in Andra Pro Stock, on the Shannon's Insurance point score table, it's Aaron Tremaine and Tyrone once again first and second. Tyrone again runner-up to his brother, and I'm already looking forward to next season. Andra Pro Stock bike is the class for motorcycle enthusiasts. Staffed of extras such as nitro and superchargers that make top bikes so fast, Pro bikes are naturally aspirated, relying on high-tech engine development and massive RPM.
Some fast facts now on Andra Pro Stock motorcycle, and of course stock by name means these machines must be street appearing.
Naturally aspirated engines, so this means no form of turbocharging or supercharging is allowed.
6-speed manual transmission, so they're busy through the gears down the quarter mile, a minimum weight requirement depending on the engine.
Front suspension is allowed in those front forks, but the wheelie bars at the back will do all the work there.
And of course these machines use homologated high-octane gasoline fuel to rip down the track.
The 2008-2009 Andra Pro Bike story was one of consistency and high attrition, as riders came and went throughout the season. As always, team owner Trevor Birrell was at the forefront, but in the lead up to round 4 of the championship faced an unusual problem. He had a brand new rider, but no bike.
Well, basically the bike was stolen out the back of my van, which was a pretty horrible experience, and we were fortunate enough to get most of it back. We had to borrow quite a few parts off of people to get here, and I haven't missed a round for Pro Stock Motorcycle for 19 years, and I decided that if I wanted to miss one, it was going to be on my terms.
In true fairy tale fashion, Howard made it through to the final, where he faced defending champ Pete Cochran.
I've got to say, a lot of the crews across a number of categories have helped out the Dutch Master team this weekend. I know Trevor Birrell's pretty emotional about it. He loves the sport of drag racing. Oh, red light for Peter Cochran. Thanks to NZ, so the dream, the Cinderella story, becomes reality.
It's true, she did make it to the ball after all. 790 with the win light. Cochran had the better ET. He could have won it. Harley Davidson replay, and there it is. That big, ominous cherry.
Red light, you hand the win to your rival. Congratulations to Trevor Birrell, Phil Howard and the Dutch Master team. That's a huge result, and a lot of people in this sport pumped about that.
Past that tree just a bit too early. He left Howard in his wake, but it was all academic. The win light goes to the Suzuki in the other lane. Looking to become the first rider to win on both the Kawasaki and the Suzuki, Michael Gilbertson found his way to the final of the Karcher Nitro Champs.
Oh, brilliant NZ reaction time for Phil Howard. Gilbo's going to have to find something special, and he won't. Phil Howard wins it by more than 1/10 of a second. That is a smashing win at the Nitro Champs.
And he's got quicker and quicker in every single pass he's had on this bike. So that is great news for the Dutch Master team. 2 wins in a row. This one is going to be tight at the Winter Nationals. He's just waltzed in the last 2 meetings, and all of a sudden he's threatening at taking this away from Gilbo. Carrying that front wheel, Gilbertson, lovely. It didn't even move till half track. And hoisted it again after that.
1:12 to the 60-foot time for Phil Howard. But Gilbertson, a disconsolate shake of the head in the braking area. He wasn't happy with the result there. He had a chance to really sew this up before heading to the Winter Nationals, but it's going to be game on in Andra Pro Stock Motorcycle. A solid win.
With hundreds of hours going into designing an Andra Pro Bike engine and kilometres of drawing going into this beautiful aerodynamic body, any 100th of a second you can find on track will greatly advantage you. But where do you find that time? Well, maybe in the way that you ride the motorcycle, known as the Pro Bike Tuck. The reason why the Pro Bike Tuck is so important, it's all about reducing that hole that you and your bike push through the air. The clues as to how you should ride the bike can be found in the design of the body itself. It's designed to fit in the rider's legs, and the fuel tank designed to hide the rider's elbows at high speed. Now, one of the lesser known facts is this second seat. It's not here for the girlfriend on the back. As a matter of fact, you hit second gear at the same time you move up onto the second seat. It helps you flatten your back down, getting nice and low, hiding under the windscreen. Get a good reaction time, hit those gear shift points, master the tuck and your Pro Bike material. The Pro Bike Championship came down to the final round at the Winter Nationals, with Gilbertson holding a solid points lead over the rampaging Howard. While Gilbo just did enough to secure the title, Howard went through to a 3rd consecutive final.
Both a little sleepy in terms of NZ reaction time, but well done, Phil Howard, and that is a terrific ET. 7:29.
Wow, he breaks into the 7.2s for the first time. What a time. Harley Davidson replay, camera flashes in the crowd. This is a great run from Phil Howard. I don't know what they were doing on the start line. I know it's getting late, but come on.
Congratulations to Phil Howard.
Shannon's insurance point score at the end of the season for Andra Pro Stock Motorcycle, and Michael Gilbertson has wrapped it up 10 points clear of Phil Howard. You get 20 points for a round win. That's how close it was in Pro Bike.
Rocket Industries was on board for another exciting year of sportsman racing, with the Rocket All-Star Racing Series touring the country, once again standing alone as the feature of the Sun State Nationals in Palmyra.
Joining the mix of bikes, street cars and future stars and purpose-built race cars was the new age wild bunch of Super Compact. These fast 4s, 6s and rotaries made a big splash with oversubscribed fields and exciting racing.
A huge mix of juniors competed around the country, proving that the future of Andra Pro Series racing is in very good hands, while the racing between the experienced competitors was always nail-biting.
You may be surprised to learn that joining Andra Top Dorsalamer here this weekend are 87 kids aged between 8 and 17, also battling it out for Winter Nationals glory. And just like any other junior sport, they're here at the freezing crack of dawn. Well, today they'll be burning down the 8th mile in these little hot rods, junior dragsters. First devised in 1992, these half-scale dragsters powered by derivatives of the Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engine teach future Andra stars the craft of drag racing. Proof seen in the career of former junior champion Ben Bray. But just how fast are they? This is the Ford F6 Typhoon. Its turbocharged 6-cylinder engine sees it put out 300 kilowatts. And this is newly crowned Andra Top Fuel champion Phil Lamattina. Together, they are about to face their biggest challenge. A junior dragster? At the wheel is young Caleb Oberg. He has a few years of drag racing experience, despite the fact he has only just turned 11. But surely he's nervous about racing Andra's fastest man.
I feel like I'm going to red light when I go against him.
So you're not very confident about beating him? You don't think you can beat him?
I reckon I can, it's just I have to cut a light.
I think I might have him covered, 300 kilowatts compared to 25, 6-speed turbo. I think I should be right.
So, Lamattina is confident of a win, but as he takes the chance to stare down his young opponent, let's see who the race fans are backing.
It's a Ford, mate. Can't do any good.
The junior dragster.
I reckon the F6.
I'll take a guess at the Falcon.
Enough guessing. The race is on. And already the little junior dragster out to an early lead within 4 seconds, already approaching speeds of 80 kilometres an hour. Lamartina chirps the tyres into second gear, and the Ford uses its greater power to close the gap, but it's not enough. And the junior dragster in the hands of an 11-year-old has thrashed the Ford F6. What on earth happened there? You got absolutely smoked.
I got no excuses.
What's it like beating the Australian national top fuel champion?
Cool.
Good job.
Not just happy to spectate at the biggest drag racing event outside of North America, Team Vodafone teammates Craig Lowndes and Jamie Whincup want to race each other head-to-head down the Willowbank Raceway quarter mile. To understand drag racing, Jamie Whincup and Craig Lowndes first needed to experience in the flesh the sport's quickest cars roaring down the quarter mile.
It's just an amazing experience, as you say. It just takes your breath away. You know they're going to go, and you're ready for it, but it just rips all the oxygen out of your lungs. It's unbelievable. It's just something else. I can't explain it.
Well, actually, I almost crapped myself. It was amazing. It was like to stand behind a top fueler. My nose was burning, my eyes were stinging, and then to watch them go down the run here, it's just amazing. So I'm actually quite surprised how sticky the start line is. I think we're going to have a lot of trouble.
We just hopefully we just don't embarrass ourselves. We get the lights right and get down there without stalling.
And stall is exactly what they did, with Whincup recovering for the race win. In the second matchup, Lowndes again struggled to get the supercar off the grippy Willowbank start line. However, Whincup took the series and bragging rights with another win. Like drag racing and most forms of motorsport, a successful driver needs a clever crew chief. At Team Vodafone, design and race engineer Mark Dutton is that man for reigning champ Jamie Whincup.
Well, you've got to be, I think, more refined to go down the quarter mile. We, like, as you said, we have to go left, right and do all sorts of things. So you have to compromise a little bit in every facet there. But with your drag racing, I think it's a lot more refined and perfected to just doing one thing, launching, going as quick as you can in a straight line. So we have a lot of respect for the guys that do the drag racing.
Hey, it's all in the aim of fun. It's all in the aim of coming out here and having a good time. And we're having that so far. So we'll flat out, see what happens.
It's certainly a different sight. Team Vodafone on the racetrack as they carry a couple of nice skids through the start line. For us, Jamie Whincup and Craig Lowndes, the third matchup. Whincup leading 2-0. Can Craig Lowndes get a bit of bragging rights back on him?
Well, they're almost quick enough, these cars. In fact, they've exceeded my expectations in how quickly they've gone down the quarter mile. But their 60-foot times around 2 seconds. The top fuel car, of course, 0.8, so it's a little different. But it's about clutch management. Oh, deep stage for Whincup. And check out the end reaction time. He smashed Lowndes in the tree.
Absolutely nailed it. If this was a race to the first corner, he'd be comfortable. Lowndes is coming back at him, though. He's not going to have the power. Whincup, all Whincup. Hey, on a whole shot win, too.
Gee, fantastic racing. No matter what discipline for Jamie Whincup at the moment, he is winning races.